So we want to start this part of the morning session. This is the Council of the Lakota Wisdom Keepers. And we'll explain a little bit more about today also, but I want to start with a prayer. So, in other words, a morning prayer. Richard wanted to do it at daybreak, but he overslept, so we'll do it now. I'd like to introduce to you Richard Brooks. If anything, in learning the language, if you either barely understand it or fully understand it, the beauty that comes from the words in the prayer, in my view, are the most awesome words that can be said. As the prayer is given to Tugashala, grandfather, Wakhantanka, sacred enormity, Wakhantanka. Enormity of that is as much as when you look up in the morning, when it's clear, there's no clouds. If you turn completely around in a circle, you see the blue dome that's above us. Enormity, because the length and the distance, the size of it is very enormous. And so, as we refer to Tugashala, grandfather, like Richard offered in his prayer, we're reminded of what enormity is by just looking at the blue dome that's above us. He also talked about the directions that are there are important. He mentioned the word Tungang, and he talked about the colors of it. You're probably aware that the color of red is Sha, but when it comes to the spiritual recognition, it's Luta. Luta, Tungang wa Shanichia Cha. That's awesome, because in there is our relationship to Tungang. Tungang, Tu is the body that is Gang, ancient. That's who we are. We're in that ancient way. And as he looked to the four directions, he also prayed for the elders, and to the south, west, north. The north is the color, and the purity of it is the color of white. And out of that, there's wisdom, and there's understanding. Woksape, wisdom. Understanding and interpreting. He also prayed as a people to stand up again. As we talked yesterday, in LaDonna's talk, she talked very strongly about we can solve our problems going back to, in the English way, old ways. It can also be ancient ways. But it's also the ways of our people that have developed over thousands of years. The way they developed, and now as we stand up again on our feet, we stand there unwaveringly. We stand there like a newborn colt again, perhaps. If you've ever been around horses, the new colt that's born, its legs are sort of spindly and they're kind of staggering back and forth. Or even a buffalo calf that's born. The first arrival onto Mujimaka, Mother Earth, the first arrival, they stand up, they stagger. Sometimes the staggering will cause them to fall down. But you have to do that when you first start to walk, after you have become reawakened. We refer to this conference as a reawakening. And in that, we're a little bit unsteady on our feet. But with the Tungang, with the ancient ways, there are answers. The new ways, they call sometimes a way of going straight, a lateral movement. It goes fast. Some have attempted to keep up with the language of it, to try and interpret what that is that has been newly created. The wisdom keeper, as they say to the computer, Woksape Okanake, some use that. But we're trying to attempt to create our translation of the technology of this world was in a straight way. So you have an iPod, you have iPod 1, iPod 2, and next month there's another iPod 3. How do we keep up with that? That's lateral movement. We live in a world as that dome is above us. Circle. We call that a Chungaleshka. Chungaleshka and the sacredness of it. Chungaleshka Wakhan. Sacred circle. If you say Chungaleshka, then you don't look at a perfect alignment of a circle drawn. We look at it in an alignment of perhaps the willow tree, which is mostly the most bendable in this part of the country. We look at it from that standpoint. And we know that as we look up above us, there's an enormity of the blue sky, in the enormity of Tugashila, sacred enormity. So what we see in the blue sky is the same thing we see in that sacred circle. And what is that? In that sacred circle is our grandfather, Tugashila. And in that sacred circle are all that has been created by Tugashila. Today, government shut down, and we're organizing a bus. LaDonna, we're going to Washington, take over, and we're going to create a sacred circle over there. Sacred circle does not include cars, does not include fancy homes, does not include the jewelry that you can pay a lot of money for. Those are man-made. So as we stand up like the newborn, and I'm going to use the newborn buffalo calf, as we stand up there and we kind of waver a little bit and we might fall back down, but we get back up. You're not the new ones to do that. You're about the 8th generation since the reservations have been established, 1888, 1890, and that you're about eight generations if you figure that every new generation is at 25 years of age, could be even younger today. So what about 8 generations? But some of you are 5 generations. Some of you are 4 generations. Those of us that are up here are more or less the 4 generations away. Using my father and my grandfather as an example, my grandfather was the first to come onto the reservation after surviving Wounded Knee. My dad was the 2nd generation, and I'm the 3rd generation. My son who's filming up here, he's the 4th generation. So we still have a connection in the memories of what the things were without the materialistic things. We have the understanding. All of us that are up here, we speak both Lakota and we speak English. One of the two sisters, she's not here. She's in her room. The 2 sisters are the ones I mentioned that are trilingual, Spanish, English, and Lakota. So we've had a chance to live in this life that changed. We too staggered like the newborn buffalo calf until we learned to understand the ways of the people that were surrounding us. And I'll talk a little bit more about this, but we learned to understand who our enemies were. The enemy was the one that threatened our villages. We learned to understand it. But in time, and as well as then, there were some other enemies. One was just being introduced, like Kingsley Brave talked about, the introduction of alcohol. The story of how that impacted the first people that put their lips to the bottle. Alcoholism, poverty, in a way, loneliness. You all have had those periods of loneliness, despair. You've all experienced some of that despair. They are as the enemy that threatened our village. They too are enemies. But the leadership of our elders, Harold Dean mentioned the people that he had the honor of knowing, all those people, and the people before them. They learned something from that because it was part of them as a people. Wayuoniha is to respect others, even your enemy. In the world that's around us, that's not there. If someone has an enemy and does harm, you turn around and you retaliate. Get even. Rex and Basil, who were young men, they speak of the times that they had to fight at the Holy Rosary Mission. And they fought, whoever won, they got up, they shook hands, and they went on their way. Today that's not so. When one fights another, they go and tell their relatives, their friends. They retaliate. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. The one thing that comes out of this are two issues that we're going to touch on. One is, at the beginning of the conference, I said that there's two people, that we are all sacred in that circle. But there's two of those that are created that are essentially considered out of respect for the self and respect for others. The women and the child, or the woman and the child. They stand a little bit higher in terms of respect. We as men are warriors. And part of this afternoon we'll be talking about that warriorship. But we're all warriors. We had women warriors that were elders. Gatela was the name that we call that society of women that were willing to fight. But the woman also was given the honor of bringing the next generation into this world. By that virtue, they were considered by a man to be in sacredness greater than the man. We honored the women. And in honoring the women, we never ever struck up. If we did, there was a penalty. We never struck a woman. We never cussed at a woman. We didn't even have the cuss words. Woman is the one that makes the decisions, because they would talk to their husbands and they would ask, this is how I see it. And the man listened. And if you're in that traditional way, you listen to the woman's advice, and more than likely you're going to follow the woman's advice, whether it's your mother, your unchila, or your spouse. If your spouse and what they said, you went against that, she wasn't mad at you, but there are words, that's all you had to say. And that was, God, how awkward you are, how unassured you are, you didn't trust my judgment. And that says a lot of meanings in it. And if you're a man, you've probably heard that a time or two. Be honest with me. I'm sure you've heard it a time or two, or maybe even more. The sacredness and respect. There's also, if you don't know this, but you feel it, there's no such word as love in Lakota. No such a word as love. But there is a word for respect. And so, you know, the English language has different words. I think I mentioned this, but I'll mention it again. One of the words is honey. And I'm sure each and every one of you has been called honey at one time. But in Lakota, honey is techmocha chisli. Bees excrement. So you might want to double check if someone comes you that calls you honey. If you know Lakota, there's a different interpretation of it. Good. This morning we want to talk about some of those interpretations. I want to share those things with you. And in honor of women, we're asking Rita, I don't know where, maybe someone needs to check on the address. Okay. We want to give the honor and respect to Rita and Beatrice. There's a little banner up here. It says the International Council of 13 Indigenous Grandmothers. And there's a picture of all of them, all the 13 grandmas that are in that role as a role of a mochila, in that role to advise, in that role to support. That support is just not only for their chagoras and their children, as a family is. It's not for a particular reservation. It's for a worldwide need for people that perhaps are having these great difficulties that we do on a reservation. Giving them advice too. Are we poor? I hear the word, we're the second poorest, we're the first poorest, we're the third poorest. All three numbers, are we poor? If we have knowledge, language, we have our customs. I see us as the richest people, not from the standpoint of being a Donald Trump or whoever else has millions of dollars. That's material wealth. In that sacred circle, all those things that are of wealth come from us as a people, come from us in our heart. So I would like to introduce to you Rita, long visitor holiness. Yes, hyphen type thing. But she's Rita to us, and that's good enough. And you'll know her as Rita when she's finished sharing those things with you. I've talked a little bit longer than I need to because she's going to talk a long time, I'm sure. But all of it is from that sacred circle. All of it is from traditional knowledge. You know, just one other thing. I said I had a science background in college, and I studied a lot of scientific theory. And if you had the opportunity to go to college, you too studied a lot of scientific theory. It's a man by the name of Vine Deloria Jr. And what Vine said, which really boosted me because it came out during the time I was in college and trying to find out who I was and where I came from and all that. He said that Native American traditional knowledge is just as accurate and as comprehensive as any orthodox science. Orthodox science meaning that other people's belief system. Traditional knowledge is just as accurate and as comprehensive. And I want you to write that down. I want you to think about that. If you have an issue of saying, where do I stand? As I stand up from my rebirth and I stand shakily, remember that traditional knowledge is just as accurate and as comprehensive as any orthodox science. Not better, not less, but just as accurate and as comprehensive. With that, I'd like to introduce to you Rita and give the mic over to her. Apilame happy.
Good morning, Tiani Washington. I'm back to Washington. First thing I'm going to say is yesterday I didn't introduce myself, and I'm a whole day behind. I'm Rita Long Visitor Holy Dance. That's my grandfather's name. And I got married, so I married Moses Blind Man. I was with him for 20 years and I got tired of him, so I divorced him. And then I was single there for a while. I raised my kids, and then I got married again. And I went and I married my brother-in-law, Ernest Afradobear. And then I got tired of him, so I got rid of him. I'm telling the truth. I'm not the Christian. Look at Potter with Chalashmi. Way out to the hill, drinking. And so, but I go by my grandfather's name, James Long Visitor, Holy Dance. But Talibani Takutan Walker, Ash, Ishe Tunaka. When I took Oglala, Charlie and Nellie Blind Man, some of you know them, old people. I lived there with them, my family. We didn't have a home. My husband didn't try to get a home. So I stayed there, took care of them, and because I had to do something to pay rent, nowadays, to tell you how much and it's just the same as what you are paying rent. Which are old people, I know so much about it. So we didn't talk on the TV, kept it clean for them. When took me 18 years, I had to tell my mother-in-law when she got sick. My father-in-law was sick. When hospital, I told me to change out the witch operation. When I was going to, you're not clear on them going out and clean. We lived a long time. We're old now, we lived a long time. When a car on the lot. Now, since after Moses still in fishing. When a car on the lot, hospital thought she all dead. I told him that I've got a car, I'm going to take you to the hospital. Yeah. Which, then I will teach then when you're going to let don't cocktail, there's no cocktail. If something's going to happen, it's going to happen here. And so I couldn't get her to the hospital, so I took care of them. My mother-in-law died in my arms. And we took her back to Brushville. And the next day, and 2 days later, she died on a Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, my father-in-law died. And my parents died way before that. And so that really broke my heart. I was left alone. Mishnah. My parents are up there, Mishnah, get. Now, muchachos, we know what we go back. Aquí chita है चालू बाकी ले खाओगे. Aquí chita है चालू la वायते. Now, ele notion. O the tuition got my parents are feeling. If they are in child rehabilitation, which I'm never going to leave my children. I'm going to stay by my children. Even if I didn't eat, I'm pretty sure that they will be eating. But try it, John. When I'm 20 years, you walk in my home. The judge when I'm magician and fungashi and pay which are Krishna, you had that for honey. You come up and had that. Oh, you're not in church or cancer, you know. But she read your job about. You're not in church, and I had, she read the guy who was only 9 years old. He's got 2 boys older than him, and he was 9 years old. I took my children, and I didn't go on welfare. I don't believe in welfare. But in church, I left the reservation. I went to Idaho, and I lived over there for 20 years. I went and I got a job, and I worked, and I retired. And I was on pension. Yes. And I was buying a brand new home, a 5-bedroom home, with my money that I made. Oh, yeah, that's the tradition Chimolakota. And Chi reservation of it, Mayupa. I was born and I was raised on the reservation. But Turkey, Okshida went to college. Same thing, double but a headshot graduate kid. When I leave, which I killed it fed. I'm going to call it a tilt that y'all will all chew fed. South Dakota got that fed. You can't live. It's up to you, Mom, if you want to do that. And so, I made up my mind we will go back to South Dakota. So what happened? So you come. Well, now, the week that we were going to leave, I had we got all my stuff in storage there in the town that I lived in. I bought furniture because I was getting a pension. My boys were going to school. Everything was good for me. That was I said. So ask, if she was not for that, in South Dakota, I want them. But you can't theater, I was watching. And the theater, I hope she got let. All right, Mom, we'll go. 2 days before we left, their dad arrived from someplace in Idaho. I didn't know what to think. And I divorced Fredo here over in Pocatello. I divorced him. And so I was free. I was free from Moses and husband. I was free. I could do anything I wanted to. I could wear any kind of clothes I wanted to. I could put makeup on. I could fix my hair. When I was married, I couldn't do that. I wanted me to dress like a grandma. Looked like I was in prison. When I got rid of the two guys, I said, oh, then I'm free. Then I'm free. When I'm kind of the group don't come. My first husband, my ex-husband arrived from someplace. I didn't see anything. When I had the pushkala, down there fishing, we just loaded up. We threw him in the back seat. We brought him back to South Dakota. I brought him back. I bought him. Let's about them. Took him to the VA in Hot Springs. And Edge said, young kid, he said, example, Chawaka, of me and myself, my marriage, my divorces. For us, I never let my children go. Ever since they were little, they were right beside me. With Hakinsky, with Charles. But now, back to their house. This very day, this very moment, this very minute, 4 o'clock, with their children, I have my son with me. And I have one son at home taking care of the house. There's 2 of them. He's got a home. They come to the house. They come to eat. He's got a wife. The other one's got a wife. He's got a place. Ash. My love for my children, number 1. I never was on welfare. I was Ushika. Ushika to the max. As you push it up, I worked because I was able to work. I was out in the fields, just like the Mexicans. The chico que mancha, que mas bala. Which I was out in the fields, thinning beets, chopping beets, picking potatoes, working out in cornfields. I've done all of that. And I even bucked bales. Nothing to it. Nothing to it. I've done all of that. And I could cuss like a man. Because you know what? I have 7 boys. I only have 1 daughter, and she's just like them boys. Hey, child. Kakish nishnu waqra ke. Chime na chamu. Kena chamu shnu beton hina him se waqra. I will never talk like that I'm talking now. If I never did do that in my life, but I did. And this Lakota language he left, it was always in my home. And before we left Idaho, I told them boys, I said, Lakota wobla kape, tiatum cute, huh? Well, that's what she told me at home, they're tiatum cute, they're going to make fun of me over there. Who do they think they are speaking English? You know, you all speak good, but boy, I was mistaken for that. But I said, we came back to Pine Ridge. We were there about a couple of days. And I went to the agency to Pine Ridge now. I applied for housing. I was going to apply for housing. Which took their office radio should. They're right there at the agency. Say, go eat. They think she was on her 2 o'clock on come. There was a young girl sitting behind the counter. Tell her, could you walk it? can I help you? I said, but ladies guy housing watching house watching the application was watching phone. Do you know what she said? Gee, she said, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you said. And I just looked at her and I didn't say nothing. I looked at Nathan and here, he said, Mom, let's go. So I turned around and I went outside. I was silent for a while. We got back to the car. I looked at him and I said, did you hear what she said? Lakota History Conference. My goodness, it fed. Well, that was the first time. And after that, I kept track of who I spoke to, and I listened when I go to town. I could hear everybody talking English.
She said when we get home, we would look awkward speaking English.
So try Lakota language today. The meaning of it, if you let it,
Speaks English.
if you let it, it's gonna whip us. Nagpunta akong storyate. Le grandmothers magkakalit ito ang medyo. Kaya piato sa chila la kotiwa. Now look they all talk different language. Kaya le frère, ensuite je when I let you, if you ever know, let you 100 years with you know how come. I knew that everybody was talking English. Missionary Oklahoma, Lakota History Conference. I must not speak Lakota. 100 times, 10 times, 1,000 times. That's a punishment I used to do. I used to write that down. Hey, costava Chihuahua at one of my visits. One of the ribbon don't future. Days my pinhead, you know your face. Or should you put another Lakota, Lakota, Scolar Chipo? Lakota. One chapter was one chapter or one spiritual. Why didn't they just reverse it a bit? Teach them. Scholarship. Teach our Lakota language. This woman said here. It's so definitely our children. But today, Lakota language today, we gotta remember that we are Lakotas. Scholarship, white men call them scholarship. Now, Washijuhe, that's a slang word, Washijuhe. You know what that means? You know what Washijuhe means? She was married to a Washiju, one of my grandmothers. I had this guy, one washuju gelena I washuju chahem. I washuju chahem. I washuju. That's how you have to say it. Otherwise, it's Skauchasha. That means a white man. Skauchasha is a white man. I washuju is somebody that's bratty. And as they talk, you can't understand what they're saying. Them are the things that they say to them. Because the grandma back then, they couldn't understand the white men when they talk. So, why should you learn? You have to call them Skauchasha because their skins are white. Skauchasha. Man, white man. Well, Lakota is hardship. And they're not jealous. Honey, Lakota was very careful. If what kind of push color go true, how do you know? You have a speech, your direction. As a child will spend children, and the details are included in the book. And how do you adjust now? So you think that push color can be included. After we have control of the little money. That's the idea China Krishna. Us. Okay, China Krishna. And I have ancient moments, and I actually. We're the ones that are supposed to speak to our young ones, but we didn't. We ignored them. We let them go. So we have to punish ourselves. Hey, Dr. Chuck, honey, why didn't I say that before? Too late. But no, it's not too late. We still have our little ones that we have to think of. We have to think about them. We have to teach them. Boys and little girls, children change our hand. When you take out of church now, they do not that with that. One member. When they still get that, who had. God should have been taught here, child. Take out of the women. Or should you get? When Joshua did the fashion, the child, who should have been announced, oldest ones, this will tell our book, this guy, and Linda Lakota, teacher, she couldn't teach them. He had to come back with notes, which I went and I told my in-laws, which is she and which okay. They took a lot of them, they got no shoot your own young up there. The child, Lakota, the little 10 years, was very extraordinary. Was very extraordinary. Which I had compassion on Jesus. You would not know. Walk out the chamber. Why should you ask no more like that? Translation, I will shoot you. I am done. So I had pushed it when I got you. You want to know that? Why should you out there? When it's not better for Jesus, when it's got Rolika, not you. We can't Nathan, you've got to know. Grandma, what is this Avenson? Yes, got that. What is this Avenson? Well, yeah, she thought that he was saying, that doctor had, well, yeah, we went and So I guess she went. She said, "Oh, you went." He said, "To me, that's his grandmother. She really got after him. That's damage that picked up. Then she got that. I know it's okay. It's not too late. It's still usual to attend. They're soft. They could learn the Lakota language. You gotta teach them. And if you don't know how to speak Lakota, teach yourself. Just like you went to school or you go to someplace else and you know, like spalano kochitayun, spalda binakoshnea, ata unus beachin hangyaw unus. Polishe makahain hindi. Na basta ang pekto ng hostage ko sa basta puno mapu. Na siya aklat the map siya that ino ang gaya hawati. Shut up.
Nathan, you're going to come up and explain indigenous. Before, I want to tell you a little bit more about the 13 indigenous grandmothers, and I'm asking the son of Rita to come up and explain. But also before that, we have some special guests here, and I'd like to acknowledge them. We have Mr. Frank Salazar, Rayburn Elizondo, Daniel Salazar, and Javon Garcia from the Kickapoo of Texas. Would you care to stand up? Folks can see you. They are our special guests. And we welcome you to Lakota. Thank you. These gentlemen that come up here, they are living on the border, as I mentioned yesterday, of Texas and Mexico. So they have dual citizenship that they carry. And they come up here to see how this conference is going. They too want to do a similar conference, is that correct? They would like to do a similar conference in their home country, and I'm sure that'll include the other tribes in Mexico as well as the tribes, the Kickapoo, which are Kansas and Texas, is that correct? Well, welcome, we want to welcome you. I'd like to introduce Nathan Lyman. Nathan is going to explain a little bit about the indigenous 13 grandmothers. They are in a very important position, role as Ujilas. And Nathan, I've asked Nathan if he wouldn't mind explaining what their role is in this organization that they belong to.
Nathan Lyman much Oglala Lakota much Oglala San Youths communities in Gakya Oglala Kushiku Aki Little Bird, Little Spotted Horse, Tiwaya San Youths at Ish Inowaki, Long Mister Holy Dance, Tiwaya Imata. They were at Gashawaki, Hakim Yecha, woundedly 10 years old. Hedgen said, what love? Then to be, you know, at the Tonwaki, Uchila organization, the Lakota legend said, Uchila Agayami, Makasidonia, Uniche. I had Tiati, Chiawaki, Iwonga, had Dushka, Chi Okolaki, Kia, the Yukhan, Iwonga, Kolaki, Kola, Wichashiki, Jela, Wichoyaki. Omniche, Ewa Shichia, International Council of 13 Indigenous Grandmothers, and I'm going to speak English now. And like my mother said, I was raised speaking English, and so now I speak Lakota. And I probably don't speak as fluent as Basil speaks, or as Leonard speaks, or any of these elders speak, or maybe those that are younger. But I speak Lakota. I grew up there in Idaho, and there was one moment that I went to a Native American church meeting, and one of the elder grandmothers there, she's a Bannock, in the Bannock tribe. She went, she asked me something in Bannock, and the same scenario that my mother spoke about, her coming back to the reservation in Pine Ridge and asking this young lady in Lakota. I had the same response that the young lady had. I looked at this Bannock grandmother, and I told her, I said, I didn't understand what she said. And she really looked at me and she chastised me the same way my mother did to that lady. And she told me, she said, well, she said, you better learn how to speak our language. But I'm not from that tribe. But the point being that if you're Native American, you have to speak your language. If you're Native American, whatever tribe you belong to or whatever tribe you live amongst, as Native Americans, we have to learn to speak that language. So I learned how to speak a little bit of the language over there in Idaho, but we've been home now for over 20 years now, so I speak Lakota. It's a beautiful language, and it's spoken quite frequently in my homes. But I want to introduce my mothers. I call both of them mom, and they are. I can take this opportunity to because they can't move. They're at my mercy, and it is true what my mom said. We were raised migrant workers. Not only me, but my older brother, who's here now, he's in the room right now. But we were raised waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and going out into the fields to pull weeds or pull weeds. And they were long hours. And if you're 13, 14 years old, waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning is torture. But we did it, and that's how we were raised. We were raised with a strong work ethic. Not only that, as Lakota people, from our mother's 2004, they went to Menla in Phoenician, New York, at the request of the Center for Sacred Studies. And there were several grandmothers that were invited. And out of all the invitations that were sent out, 13 of them responded to the invitation. And after a few days of being there in Menla, they organized themselves into what we now know them as the International Council of 14 Indigenous Grandmothers. And the grandmothers that are part of the council, I'll start with the 4 oldest grandmothers. It's Grandma Agnes, she's Salix from Oregon. And then there's my mother, Rita, along Mr. Holy Dance from Lakota name is Scami. And then the third oldest is my Aunt Beatrice, along Mr. Holy Dance, and her Lakota name is Rachel Tony. And then the 4th oldest grandmother is Grandmother Bernadette. She's from Libreville in Gabon, Africa, which is Equatorial Africa. And then the rest of the grandmothers are Grandmother Rita, Krista Blumenstein. She's Yupik from Anchorage, Alaska. There's Grandmother Margaret, Grandmother Margaret Behan. She's Cheyenne Arapaho from Lame Deer. There's Grandmother Elise, Mary Elise from the rainforest of Brazil. There's Grandmother Clara, who's from Japan. And there's Grandmother Julieta Casimero. She's from Guadalupe Jimenez. And there's Grandmother Flor de Mayo. She's from Nicaragua. And there's Grandmother Ama. She's from Nepal. And there's Grandmother Sarin, who's from Tibet. Those are the 13 indigenous grandmothers that formed in Menla, New York in 2004. And I'm going to read their mission statement. It's a brief statement. And this is what they came up with in New York. It says, our mission statement. We represent a global alliance of prayer, education, and healing for our Mother Earth, all her inhabitants, all the children, and for the next 7 generations to come. We are deeply concerned with the unprecedented destruction of our Mother Earth and the destruction of indigenous ways of life. We believe the teachings of our ancestors will light our way through an uncertain future. We look to further our vision through the realization of projects that protect our diverse cultures, lands, medicines, language, and ceremonial ways of prayer, and through projects that educate and nurture our children. And so with that, although you have heard my mother speak already, I want to speak. I present to you my mothers, who are members of the International Council of 13 Indigenous Grandmothers. Thank you.
My name is Frank Salazar. I'm from Texas, Eagle Pass, Texas. And then we're also from Mexico. This is called Musquis, Colorado. This is my brother. Hello. We're glad to be here with you guys, to start this research field. And we also like to do that in our native land, Cimiento. That's what it's called in Cimiento, in Mexico. Nacimiento is called water that comes out. We have a land like that in Mexico. You see, our tribe went over there because of the settlers that came. We are a small group of Indians, from the Native Americans, and then our leaders got worried that we might, disappear from the earth. So ahead of time, when the white chiefs came, we went like 4 years before they came. So we start, going further, so we end up in Mexico. But over there, there were different kind of people. There were Indians, but, mix other bloods. That's one of the reasons that we're in Mexico. And one thing too, to preserve our cultures and our language. And we still speak our language at the moment. We still speak it a lot. And I'm going to say a few words so you guys can hear what our language sounds like. Nemere depena no ke pia ke yo e pia na ke sai. Mani no kwetsi sai ke mani ke no ni ke na me kwetsi ke me suho. Ni na ne ke no to ma ke ni sai. E ti pia ke kwetsi. E ti pia ke pe ta ke ke to ma ke te pena e si e api kwetsi so ne ka pena ke mi ti ka yes. Ne beto no pa ke ma ka mani la e pia ke ta se ta ta ka ke mi ja me so e na to mo. And well, pretty much that I say this, we like what you guys are doing, and we came, to try to do, it's kind of like research, I guess. And we came to see, well, you said, Dita said, a different word to a white man. We'd say money in our language. Which is, a white-skinned human being. And so it's not a bad word, but we have to do that, and we respect it, so. Well, that's all I'm going to say right now. I can speak, I could go on for days, but, we have to, I have to give this guy, they misspelled his name. His last name is Garza, but they call him Garcia, which is almost similar, but it's okay. Here's
It's glad to be here, to be part of this first, I guess you guys are setting a template, I guess, for what's going to be coming, I guess, on preserving your culture. I'm glad to be part of it, I guess. And I'm a little nervous right now. I don't usually do this. So, hopefully, we'll learn from you guys, learn something from you guys. That's all I have to say.
Okay, pretty interesting time of our time in our house. That we are in the days that we're gonna make. You see, we still are continuing to have our traditional homes, the ones that we call Wikiapi. And Wikiapi is a summer house. And then we also have a Pahuican. A Pahuican is a cacao house, which is the same house, but the same house, we take the top off and then we put it on the ground because it's going to be winter. So it's a round hut and it has a fireplace in the middle. We kept those houses. But we don't know how many, we don't know who started the houses, but God gave us that. So we had to continue all that tradition. Those little houses that we have, the Iquiapis, that's where we do all of our ceremony activities. When the first time when we come to the earth, that's where they give us our name. And then afterwards, you do your 4 direction ceremonies. So each and every one that has that's sent from God, because that's where that's where they know us. First, it's the east side, and south, and west, and north. Those are the things that we preserve too. So that's where the God knows us. There are those little cuts. I don't know what you call them in English. My English is so bad because my Kickapoo is 100%. So I'm kind of like the reverse on some people. Some people can't speak the language, but I can speak the language. And my English is bad, and I don't know what to say, The words that I'm using, those are the only little words that I can say. But in Kickapoo, it's different. When I hear people that speak in English, sometimes I have to work my mind. I hear they're speaking, but I said, well, if they say coffee, it's coffee. And if they're a door, but if they speak something, what they're talking about, I may not understand it. But I'm just there, looking at them. Well, they're saying something real important. And they'll sometimes they'll laugh. I laugh too. But sometimes I don't know what they're saying. And he said, well, a lot of things, are used only on your mind, what they're up to. They look at that door and say that there's something going on. They're gonna run through that door. So, that, the arrow that they're gonna run. A lot of things are like that. That, but that's the way it is. Me and my brother and my friends over there, here, we only communicate in our language. For us to speak other language among ourselves, it's kind of embarrassing. We are embarrassed. I can speak to them in English a little bit, even in Spanish, but I can't do that. For me, it's embarrassing to speak to them our language, because God has given us our language. What language that is, I think they call it in English Ogangwe. Yeah, something like that. But we speak that language fluently still, and we're grateful for that.
Okay. So we want to continue this part with the other Unchi. And she's a relative of mine. She's my sister-in-law, Lakota extended. And so I'd like to turn this mic over to Beatrice at this time to give her thoughts to you. And I've asked them, this is nothing that's prepared in terms of notes, those kind of things. All I ask you to do is speak from your heart on what you think is important for her to share with you. So at this time, give this mic over to Beatrice.
I'm not much of a speaker, Ash. I'm going to try my best to talk. There's a lot of things that are being talked about here. How to do this work here to remember ourselves, I might say, to try to bring back the ways of the people. And I'm very honored to sit here and to speak to you people, because you all come from different areas. And you have families that maybe they don't speak their language, or they don't understand it. So this is a reminder that we're brown skinned, we've got this color, and we have our own language. So we need to take care of that. Myself, I speak to my children, sons and daughters, and grandchildren. Even some of them, one of my daughters was married to a Mexican man in Idaho. And they lived over there. And now that they're back, they're all trying their best to speak Lakota. We talk to them. And they're learning. They know how to powwow dance and do all that. And they're learning as young grandchildren. So I'm happy for that. And most of all, my everyday life is prayer. My prayer starts from the morning till the time I go to bed. I want to apologize this morning for being late, but I have a job. I work yet. I live to work. So I still work. I drive a truck and deliver medications to our people on the reservation. Some people don't like to take their medicine or they forget to take their medicine. So I deliver medications to them. And so I was over there at the office trying to fax my worksheet off, and I had a time trying to get it going. So that kind of made me late, and same time I got all kinds of phone calls. I couldn't get away from my room. I finally got out of there, got over here. So I just want to say I'm sorry I was late, but I'm sure I didn't miss anything because I know just about what goes on in these conferences. And it's really good that people could come here and tell each other's about the good history of our people. But you know what? Myself, history is history. It's good. It's good. But myself, I believe that a prayer is more important than anything else. What I teach at my home is prayer. And I live by that prayer. I'm a sun dancer. I still sun dance with my family. And we have our Sundance leader sitting right here, Basil. He's my nephew. And he takes care of that Sundance for us. And I'm real proud of him for doing those things. And the prayer, Lakota, Ways, Chanupa, Wakun, that was brought to the Lakota tribe. And they were told to use it for good health, for life, and to use it for their needs, whatever it might be. And that's what I follow. And I always say to my sick people, the Chamupa was brought to us. Pick it up, load it, pray with it, ask for the things that you want, and believe that you have it, and carry it through, take care of it like that. That way, you're going to benefit good things. I pray with that pipe, and I Sundance and pray, and whatever I ask the Creator, I don't even have to ask. I just think about it and it happens. And I know the power of prayer is the most important thing that we have to teach our families. Our families need to know that first things first is the Creator who created us. First things first, teach your grandchildren's, your children's, how to pray. My grandma, her name was Julia Kilschief. I used to stay with her in her little cabin, her and my grandpa. In the mornings, they both get up, and I get up, and they go outside, I follow them outside. And they reach out towards the sun like this with both hands, and they pray. And they pray in Lakota, and that's where I learned how to pray. That's how I learned how to pray. So every morning, I live by myself. I have a son, that's ailing with diabetes, but he went to California and he's living over there. And so I stay at home by myself, so in the mornings, I walk outside without no shoes on, bare feet, even in the winter time. I go stand on Mother Earth and I pray. Make a prayer for the world in the 4 directions where our people are. That's what I pray about. They might need something. Maybe they're hungry. Maybe their water is no good. Maybe they need some good water. Maybe they're sick. Maybe they need help somewhere. Old people and little children and our grandchildren, some of our grandchildren that missed the way. They're wasting their life away, drinking, drugging, all that. I pray about all that as Creator to watch over them, take care of them, bring them back to this red road of life, bring them back there. Tungashila, Wakantunga, pity our loved ones. They didn't know any better, so they went into drinking and drugging. Sometimes they don't know what they're doing. So take care of them, bring them back. Bring the young children back to the right red road that we have. We must follow that. We must do that. We must always remember Tungashila Wakantunga is the way. No other way. And we have to live our prayer. Always. When I have a little money and somebody come by and ask me for help, I give it to them. Even if it's just a dime that I have, I give it to them. But it always comes back to me. I never go without. Some days I just can't believe how that happens. Things come to me. And my house is full of food. I keep giving it away, but it still comes back. All summer long, I've been getting choke cherries, dried meat, and I been canning. I can beets and tomatoes and peaches and stuff like that. I brought some peaches home from Idaho and I canned them just before I came. I do all them things, and my daughter does the same thing. My daughters both do the same thing. They're drying meat, they're drying cherries, and canning. Plus, we still come to our meetings and whatever we have to do. It's just the way of life. Nowadays, they're destroying Mother Earth, digging deep into her womb, and destroying everything that Creator put here for us to enjoy. We're supposed to be enjoying what Creator gave us, but we want to be better than Him. We even want to go to the moon. We want to do this, we want to do that, but that's not the way. He's the Almighty One, and if ever He turns and takes a look at us, we're going to be sorry. So I'm just telling you these things. I know maybe you know better than I do, but I just remind you that prayer is more important than anything else. You can learn, you're all educated. I'm not. You're all educated. But in there, if you don't have that prayer and your heart, give yourself to the Creator to take care of you, then that's nothing. That's all just nothing. You have Creator's the first thing. You have to keep in mind, you can even heal yourself when you're sick. You can just ask, and it's going to come to you. You're going to get a healing. You can do it with your own mind. You can heal yourself. I know, because in the mornings I might hurt, I might be achy. I'm 86 years old. I have aches and pains. I get under that shower and I say, this water is Wanikia Jesus. It says Jesus is the water of life. So I say, Jesus, I believe on you. I believe anything they tell me in prayer. I said, Jesus. I say, bless this water. I say, this is you. When it gets on my brains, on my head, let my brain remember that my body's hurting. Let my brain remember that I want that pain to go away. And it goes away. So I just tell you these things that I myself experience in my everyday life. I want to know if any of you have any questions. But the first and the other thing I want to say, I want to acknowledge those Korean veterans, Basil and Rex Herman, and whoever else is a Korean veteran here, and the lady that's a veteran, I want to acknowledge her for her beautiful work that she did while she was in the service. She did a lot of work, help people, take care of people, and I really thank her for doing all these things. I really think a lot of those Korean veterans, because our brother was a Korean veteran. His name was Rex Long Visitor Holy Dance, Jr. But he passed on 4th of July. So it was 4 years ago. So he's no longer here, but I just want to remember my brother too. And all the veterans of the world, and all the servicemen, armed forces. I want to remember them today while we're here. There's a lot of our Lakota people that's been in the service. And our younger generation, our children, the grandchildren's. I want all of them to be good and happy today while we're sitting here. I want all of your families to be in good standing in whatever their needs are, whatever you people need, and whatever your thoughts are, that the Creator can all look upon on each and every one of you with a good blessing to take home to your families. And pray hard so our Lakota people can remember that they are Lakota and they must learn their Lakota language. Thank you.
I guess it's my time to say some words. There's a lot of wrong things going on in this universe, not just us Lakotas, it's throughout the world. Problems, alcohol, suicides, family problems, kids suffering, and it shouldn't be like that happening. Why is it? Maybe it's our way of life. Maybe it's our way of life. It's kind of misleading ourselves too much. Maybe that's why we have problems. My grandma and grandpa. They didn't have much education, but they lived good. They ate good. We live in a log home, log house, dirt roof, dirt floor. But we have horses and cows. We keep ourselves busy every day, sun up, sun down. We're looking for cows, we're looking for horses. Then we work on our garden. We have good gardens. Our elders will have good gardens. Whatever needs, it's there. In the fall, this time of the year, they kill maybe a couple cows. Then all the Tioshba, the families, extended families, the Tioshba, they come over on wagon. They camp. Maybe 4 or 5 camps came to my grandma and my grandpa's house. And they're talking like this. Talk about future. Talk about what it's going to be like today. How did they know? I don't know. But they know what's going to happen. When maybe next day we ran the cattle in. I was still a little boy, maybe 10 years old or 9 years old. I was riding bareback, helping my uncles to run the cattle in. Maybe they knocked down 2 cows, and then grandmas and grandpas are skin them. And they dry the meat, they slice the meat, and they dry the meat. And Tanya the punch. Grandmas are washing Tanya. And they dry those meat and those Tanyas. Then fruit, we have plums, we have cherries, we have buffalo berries, we have currant berries, everything. They dry everything. Then they stayed with us for about a week or so. And by the time the meat is dry, the papa, dry jerky, we put them in a plastic, almost say plastic sack. Those days there were no plastic sacks. The flour sacks, you know, they put their dry meat in there, dry squash, just like she said, the canning goods, all kinds of canning, tomatoes, cucumbers, pickles, and beets, whatever it needs to be canned. But everything is pretty much they dried up. They pack them. And each Chihuahua that come, they share the food. And I have an auntie have a pretty good, probably about an acre of watermelon. Nothing but watermelon now. So this time of the year we pick up the watermelon. And I don't know what they did with it. I was too small head, so some things I remember, some things I don't. On Christmas Day, we have watermelon. New Year's Day celebration, we have watermelon. Where all these come from, Grandma? You know where it all come from? The garden. So how did you keep it so it still tastes fresh and everything? Well, there in the garden, she took me down there and she showed it to me, how they put the watermelon and cucumbers and all that. So those things are real good days, I think, our elders. But our elders are all gone, disappeared. They went back to the other side of the world. And we're modern elders. have food stamps. We have some kind of money every 2 weeks, every month. And yet, our grandmas and grandpas have cattle, mentioned cows. They're not much of educators, but they're good leaders. Tiwahi, he touched. Tiwahi, he touched. Every household, a man, Tiwahi touched. And again, they're policymakers and decision makers. It's not written in a piece of paper. It's all written here and here. Okay. So they take care of their own Jewish. They even have a law, police system, judge. Every TY, the man is a judge, policymaker, decision. I remember this one gentleman, he kind of went overboard beyond. He said he's homemade home brew. He's making homemade home brew and he sells it. He got everybody drunk. So they reported him, the TY, caution. So they all got together and they bring that guy in. They talk to him. Wisdom, knowledge. He's elderly, not elderly, but a middle-aged man, but he's doing that. How come you doing that? How come you done this? Got everybody drunk. This is supposed to be dry reservation, Hundred Indian reservation. Supposed to be dry reservation. But today we got a problem. As soon as the chief died, the tribal council adopted trying to legalize the alcohol. We're into the different stage, different area again. The alcohol is the number one, maybe number two, killer in this world, in this continent. And drugs, you name it, there's all kinds of drugs. In the old days, we don't have those. They don't have them. When we want to smoke, when we want to see cigarette or smoke or whatever, they took out their pipes, built body and smoked natural tobacco, chanupa. Minds are pure. Now today we're kind of absent-minded. You told us something and we walked out and we forgot. We forget. But those days it's not like that. And today we say we're educators. You have a high school diploma, you have a college degree, you have a PhD. Where are we at today? We're kind of lost. Kind of misleading. The way of life is misleading us. We're too much educated, I guess, educators. We're misleading ourselves. Even our language. Language is very important. But today, it's not happening that way. We don't care Lakota or English. In the prophecy, in the way back, Grandma told me, there's going to be a gathering at the medicine wheel way up in the Bighorn. So who? Oh, you don't know. Wait till you grow up and tell you the prophecy. So they all went up there, warriors, and the medicine wheel. They sat all the way around like that. They put their weapons down below. And they went up there and they're sitting, waiting, see who's going to say something. And here they sit there. guy came all of a sudden from nowhere. Kind of long, beard. So he said, each and every tribe, each and every Lakota, I give you tongue to speak with. I give you the language. But someday, this language is going to go back to one again. He said, I will destroy the universe with a lake of fire. As I destroy the language before it, he said, in the Middle East, someplace in the Middle East, you all know, you probably all read it in the Bible, it said the Tower of God. So they were building a tower with people. And years so far, the language is said, you'll never reach the blue sky. Stop it. Quit. No years. Hey, honey, one of them said, well, maybe they don't listen. No, it's true. Because we don't listen today. And we came here today, trying to revise our way of life, our leaderships and responsibilities. And here, did you hear that? Yeah. It kind of stopped for a while. And they were starting to build that tower again. Build the tower. Those days, there's only one language. It's probably the language that we speak today. We're all heading back to one language. We don't listen to God. We don't listen to our country. We're all heading to destroy ourselves someday. So God cast the tower away for direction. People falling down for direction. And they changed the language. They all speak in different languages. And that's the reason why they call upon the warrior people up in the medicine wheel. And here this guy said, remember, I give you a tongue to speak with the language. And if they go back to one again, I will destroy the universe with a lake of fire. So they believe the native Lakotas, when they speak to Jesus Christ. Beard. At that time, they don't know who that guy is. Who's that guy? Long beard, and hair. But after they realize it's Jesus Christ that came to speak with Lakota, the language. It's true, we didn't do it. We don't obey the God rule. We don't obey the natural laws, the natural way of life. We don't listen. Today, we got problems. Broken marriages, kids suffer, elder abuse, you name it, there's all kinds of problems. Who created those? age. We don't listen. We don't listen to God's rules, to God's laws. Today we have some sacred sites. Every year, Leonard and I worked at our school. We took kids over all those sacred sites. First year, when we took them, they don't listen to us. They're yanking away, pushing each other, fighting. So we talked to them, Leonard talked to them, we talked to them. The second year, we went up there, it was just quiet like this. You could hear a pin drop. They all listen. They all respect. They respect us. But first year is not working. So we're trying to teach the young generation the way of Lakota, the way of life, the language. We even took the natural feed food. We took kankachishi, the buffalo tongue, and sliced them. We prayed, each kid eat that tongue. And we prayed the thunder. We'll welcome the thunder. Spring, at springtime, December, January, February, and now in Shashasha, the dry willows. We cut the dry willows, and we will buy in the pipe on those days. At Yoshbak, we get together. We're trying to bring back our own way of life, like our grandmother doing. Today, we're way off. We're still trying to learn again, I guess. We're trying to re-educate the Lakota Baptists. The springtime, we do that. Bring people now. We pray. And on those days up west, before the daybreak, the bowl of the pipe will show the stars is the one that shows the bowl of the pipe going up. The leadership is the Ihupa. The responsibility is the Ihupa. Seven sisters. Today, Washichu, we're not native called Ernie. We call Washichu. And then take in a Bishlapa, center of the hills. Bishlapa, that's where we went. We pray again, we'll welcome the thunder. We feed the two-legged, we feed the four-legged. We spill water, we nourish the universe. So universe will be healed. So is the human. What can we do to heal the universe? So we be healed too. Then June, equinox, the day and the night cross over each other. It's a prime time of the year of fasting, sun dancing, and sacred rites, sacred laws we have to obey and abide. But we didn't do it. Naku makaka wachu ishna ya echum. Naku makaka wachu ya. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Yeshu. Makaka naku wachu lakota or Patience, honey, our ancestors, they follow the rules, the natural law. Woke something, woke the bravery, the fortitude, and those I think you translating every one of those will be hundreds of words. Everything is have a policy, rules today. We have a United States Constitution and we have a tribal constitution. And yet we never follow those constitutions. We violate every bit of the United States Constitution and the tribal constitution. Everything has rules. One thing Columbus forgot to bring, he brought alcohol. Beer, whiskey, all whatnot, we get drunk on it, we drank. But Columbus forgot something. Or maybe he didn't make any. Because there's no law, no policy on alcohol. So today we got problems.
Thank you, Richard. There's two more speakers. One has arrived, and I'll be calling on him. He can speak from where he's at. But there's a lot of thoughts that are crossing my mind. And honey, Nashji, Skawakaja, Elwao, Uchoha, Kihina, Ashkata, Bina, Inilashki, Bina, Dako, Airpik, Kihina, Lakotia, Ukana, Wogalaka, Kihina, Inilakel, Nakuma, Wahona, Betuel, Watumo, Abalance. Well, hey, it's when I was a little child, I played. A lot of things to do, but I was very quiet. I listened because I was listening to my parents, my grandparents, and their friends, and our relatives, and they all spoke in Lakota. But even at that early age, I was taught to respect others. So I listened. And I guess I learned a lot during that time. My grandfather, when I was about maybe 5 years old or 6, we had cattle and we'd butcher a beef. And when we were taking the insides out, while they were doing it, my grandfather grabbed me by the arm, took me over there, and he said, "Henny, Khaja Kihena, Shila Kihena, Beto Elagichi Tapikhteme, Olero Chungi, Chukupucha, Tagoja, Leo Spechichi." A long time ago, as boys, we were taught the role of the man, and a large part of that role was to be an Agichita, warrior. So, grandson, you come with me over here. I want to teach you something. And he grabbed me and we went over to where the cow had been butchered. He took his knife out and he cut a piece of liver out. It was still warm. And he cut a piece and he gave it to me. And he said, he wash ke wa ai kwa ke hani khanka ke etches na we chew you on him. You take this is a part of the khanka, the buffalo, and of course it was not a buffalo, but he said this is what we did to get the strength from the khanka, the buffalo, and he whacked off a piece of the liver, and he gave it to me. It was warm, and I really liked it. It was nothing different for me. First time to taste that liver. And I wanted more. And my grandfather said, well, I'll give you the hedgehog. And because it was something that he put in my mind that were related to everything. And that gift that was being given by the Tlatranka through that liver was going to give you the ability to be a warrior someday. That's one of the memories that I went through. And years later, we gave it to a Washichu, white man. He joined it. We killed a buffalo on the reserve that we have at Allen. And they wanted to see how we hunted the buffalo and what the meaning of it was. So Richard and I were there. There were a couple, these were Germans. And so they said, we want to be part of everything. And they had some women with them, and so we cut a big chunk off for both of these Germans. And we said, eat it, you'd be a warrior. And they looked at us, and they didn't know what to say, and then they looked at their women that were with them, and they knew they had to prove something. So they took the piece of liver, they swallowed it, and the guy had a long neck, and you could see that piece of liver going up and down, and finally he just closed his eyes and he swallowed it. Kind of like what we are today, as I see it. We haven't had that opportunity to be able to be in the past. But there is also a story that I want to share with you. And we talk about the directions. And in the old Lakota, they say Totki. And in English, probably the closest you could come to it is 4. 4 times 4. So you put your mathematical brain into gear, and you say 4 times 4 is 16. Totki was 4 times 4 is equal 16, but it also equals 1. This isn't written anywhere, and I don't know, I'm taking this opportunity to share it with you. But that's the version of when we say Makasi Domini, clear around the world, the whole world in itself. And if we've seen pictures of it, it's round. If you look in the microscope and you find the tiniest particle that's there, you find it's round. If you see the ripples of the water, if something drops in there, it ripples out in a circle. We look at the seasons, you look around, it's a circle. But it depends on how you look at it, because Totki equals 16, but 16 equals 1. I've asked that question to the educated mathematician. I said, define that for me. And it couldn't define it. It doesn't. 16 can be 4 times 4, or it can be different numbers, but it is 16. How can it be 1? That's the concept that Lakotas saw. Totki is, first of all, we speak of the directions. East, west, north, south. east and south, in that movement. But Topki is then, if it's 4 directions, then how could it be something that's round? In the thinking, in the educated world, science world, it's flat. It's hard to visualize the roundness of what Topki could be. Our ancestors looked at that and they said, 16 is 1. How is that? So you have to begin to visualize. Lakota is a language, one of the few languages. I don't know about other indigenous languages, but it's certainly different from the English language. Because the English language says a circle. Most of the time you look at it as something flat. But from that Topki, you have another direction in our prayer. That direction is upward. Upward means the connection we have with the stars. We also have the belief of the soul. The soul travels this road from north to south. That's where we came from in that belief, and that's where we return to. If you look up at the 7 stars of the Big Dipper, in a way that is parallel to our 7 council fires of us as a nation. But in that corner, northeast corner, that star is known as Tui. Tui is literally translated as the birth woman. The birth woman's responsibility is to purify the spirit that's coming. In that, there's a portal between, it's not heaven in English, it's Wichanache Omanaye, the gathering place of the souls, the spirits, Wichanache Omanaye. When that soul is going to come and join, when a child is conceived, the conception is between the man and the woman. At that moment, the Wichanachi joins the body and the Tawachi, purified. So that's why we call our children Wakan Echa, or Wakaja, that which is sacred. When all is done here, we have a word, Wa'aka Shapishni. Wa'aka is kind of maybe like a cloak. Shapishni is the purity, the cloak of purity. And so it's almost like we're being deluged today by the things that Richard said. The purification returns when we go back. Toi purifies us. There's a little lodge, and if you look up there, the Big Dipper, at northeast corner, there's a little lodge there. Oinikaha, a place where there's vapor from the rocks, the Ian, the rocks being the oldest. That rock is heated, and even though it's lifeless, it will give you the purification back. We're purified. We had no concept of the devil. We had the concept of a vulnerability of our tawachi, our mind. That's vulnerable. It can be almost like, come on, go ahead and do it. No, I better not. Oh, it won't hurt you. Go ahead. Flip Wilson, I think it was, had a show one, and he had the devil make me do it, you know, that kind of a thing. But we had no concept. That was Tawachi, our mind. We had no hell. There was no concept of that. So the elders that, in the beginning, when we were becoming Christianized, they thought about that. And there's a story that the elders said that, you know, like this place hell you talk about. Winter it gets cold up here in the Dakotas. You have to gather, gotta get at least 11 loads, wagon loads of wood so we can last the winter. But with our arthritis, when we go out and have to chop the wood, it hurts our arms. So where there's eternal fire, that sounds good. It's good for my arthritis. We don't have to worry about getting wood. And so instead of being baptized, they said that, well, we'll be baptized because this hell sounds good. Initially, it sounded good. But today, there's a fear of it. Did I do good or did I do bad? But the purification that went back purified us. Again, well, Akash, pure. We had a very strong connection with that belief system. So, above, when we offer these prayers upward, we also offer the prayers to what we stand on, Jimakha. So that became six directions. And then the seventh direction was you. The importance of you in all of these directions. But Tolki was to say that as each direction pointed out, whichever way it was going, it doubled by 4. Those that doubled by 4 then doubled by 4 in all the directions. Therefore, this is in Lakota way a ball, just like a ball. Everything that we related to was in a spiritual way with that Toki. We've gotten away from that. I know that there's a lot of things that I could talk about that, but just to give you that idea of who you are. In my view, when I look at that concept, that understanding, made us amongst the most sacred people that Tukashila put on this earth. And we will continue to be here. We talk about destruction that's happening. If we had time, we'd share with you the visit we had by the Kogi people from Colombia, where they have kept their culture intact for over 500 years, ever since Columbus arrived. They secured a place and they wouldn't allow anyone, so they kept that. They gave us a message that the destruction is already happening, because the purpose of Ujimakha was to provide a place for us while we had our nahi, which is our soul, we had our body, and we had our kawachi. In the original time, we were all related. Today we use that as a prayer ending. A man by the name of Zach Bearshield, I was visiting with him, he's now gone. But he said, I was listening to whenever we pray. And he said, they say Midambiya Oyasi at the end of the prayer. And he said, I couldn't figure out why they are saying that. But it suddenly realized that we're getting the influence from the English language. Because when you pray in English, when you finish your prayer, you say Amen. We had to figure something out because there's no Lakota word for Amen. Absolutely no word for amen. So we had to have an ending. And we say, Mitakuye Oyasi. But that's a different meaning from the Lakota understanding. Mitakuye Oyasi is a pledge. It's just like when you stand up and you take the oath of whatever it is. You pledge by saying Mitakuye Oyasi that you live in that way where you understand there's a two-legged, the four-legged, the wing, the things that crawl, things that swim, the things in the universe above us, the things that are on Jimakha, yourself, as a living being, a round living being. We have a big cave here in the Black Hills. If you ever want to find a breath of the purest air, you go to that opening that they have there. And you can feel Jimakha's breath coming. If you're there long enough, it withdraws itself. Inhale, exhale. It's pure air. But as Lakota, that's not the site that we came through. It's nearby. There's a rock up there that covers the hole that we came out of. And my grandfather, he shared that with me, that they would go there. We talk about this Wakhan Orchwashde, this period of our spiritual time, spring equinox to the summer solstice. And my heritage is Wakhoju, or Minihoju. I am part of the people, but I had to become an Oglala because my grandfather could not go back to the site that they came from after the massacre. So my heritage is that way. I still believe in calling my grandpa Lala, because that's how the Minihojus address their grandfathers. In Oglala, Sichanhu, I'm not sure about the Umpapa, but they say Kaka. But if I'm to be who I am, I have to refer to my grandfather's Lala. My grandchildren refer to me as Lala, so they're continuing and on. But we are, in our language, we're able to use both sides of the brain. How can you do that if you speak only English? How can you do that? Well, English, we can say, honey, I love you, all these kinds of things. But it goes to our feeling side of the brain. As a person that speaks both languages, I can almost predict what people will say because they're in sequence. Everything is in sequential, logical order in the English language. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so when you're teaching Lakota, that's one of the first things, somebody mentioned that the other day. We teach our children how to say Wanshi, Nomba, Yamani, Dopa, Sapna. We're teaching them logical thinking because that's the way the English thinking is. We can express, for example, Uji. Uji is grandma in the English language. We can slide that over and put the emotion into it by saying Ujila. Ujila. That puts the feeling that you have. We all have grandmas. And when we want to refer to them in that feeling way, we take the logic side and then we put the emotion side. One word, Ujila. That brings in the feeling if you have that perspective. We chose Ani. We chose Ani, if we were to put it into English, it's the wholeness of well-being. But it goes deeper than that. The wholeness of well-being spiritually, physically, mentally, and the way of life economically, which is adequate. There's so many words to understand in that, and the beauty of that is there. Totoki gives us that opportunity to look at it, not on a flat basis, but in total, in wholeness. And that's the part that we're losing. So we say, Hihani Washte. We're even getting to say that just as something that we hear so much, we're starting to say it. Hihani Washte is good morning in English. No Lakota grandparent has ever addressed anyone by saying Hihani Washte. There's no word for that. But there's a word for Abedu Washte. It's the whole day. In that round way. Abedu Washte Yohayo. But even before that, Chekiapi is to give honor. So you address them as relatives. There's a whole list of relatives. You honor them by saying that. You never said, Abedu Washte Marcella, Abedu Washte Basil. Our ancestors never said that. Unchi, Lekshi, whatever they are to you, we respect by saying that. And then we say, Doniktukaho, how are you? Even that mannerism, we're losing that. Oh, that's my third cousin once removed. We have so many cousins. One of my cousins, Tahashi, sitting there in a white baseball cap. And our relative, we have one relative. Her name was Wina Washteni. She changed it to a pretty woman, Clara. He still has her Chinumpa because she was, again, probably, maybe my closest statement is, she was sacred. Yes, she was sacred as a mother. She was sacred as an Ochi. When all her children had been raised, she was given the gift of giving medicine. She chose the medicines that she was using. I have a cousin, Wilbur's brother. He was older than us. And Wilbur probably heard this story too. But he would go with her to gather the plants. She had a little pipe, and she would offer her prayer because she knew that her help was going to be needed. And she'd go out with his brother, my cousin, and he said, Leonard, I never ever had to have her go and show me exactly which plant she was going to use. After she offered her prayer, then she'd say, Ho Takosha, Hene Chuo, either the top or the bottom of the plant. And he said, I look around like this, and each one of these plants had a green aura around it. The plant had responded to her power, sacred power that was given to her. And then she would tell him, either take the top or the root. And when he did that, she would offer tobacco where that plant was taken. The power that we have, the power that is capable, spiritual, we have it, but it's a reawakening that's there. If Richard doesn't have an answer for how this is to be done, he offers a prayer, and through his gift, it comes to him. Our answers lie with our ancestors, the spirit that's there. Not only us will reawaken, but we will reawaken to those things that were for thousands of years. Just about 2 months ago, they brought some pictures to us, aerial photos. And in an anthropological thinking, the people that study the past and whatever they can see, they said that they call them tipi rings. They're a circle of rocks that are there. And so these are teepee rings. The logical thinking of it is to say, oh, these are nomadic people. They go from place to place, and why carry the rocks with them to put it around the teepee when they set it up? They just put them in rings. Well, when did you ever put your teepee up in the woods of South Dakota with the rock and it'll go away? They used stakes. We saw these so-called teepee rings, and I was completely taken back because there was a message by, again, the anthropologists saying Paleo Indians. But we were talking, saying we were pale at one time. Now we went back to some other color, but we were pale at one time. They can't say that we're Lakotas or they're Paleo Indians. Well, who are Paleo Indians? Well, these are the ones that have these different points on their spears and their bows, and they go into that logical thinking. Lakotas were always here as a people, perhaps related to the others that came here. The one that lasted longest was the Cheyenne people and the Arapahoes. We still call them our relatives directly. That's part of it. We all share it because these hills are sacred. And so as we've done that, we looked at those pictures, and I saw immediately those teepee rings. It was on a flat. It's in south part of the hills. It's a flat plateau. There's 7 teepee rings, or circles. 7 of them. And in that northeast circle, there were 4 circles that went and curved. And there was a whole collection of round rocks that were placed. And on the other side, there were circles all around. That message was left there by our ancestors. And we saw it's that journey of seeking goodness that we come from Wichanachi Omanaye, and we will return back to Wichanachi Omanaye, being cleansed, Lakota. Your choice is yours. I always thought maybe I've done bad. And being a Catholic, I'd have to figure out which one I didn't forget, but in order to cover all the sins that I made, I'd say, please forgive me of all my sins. And I'm sure, well, what if I didn't have a chance to think about that before my time came? But to me, as a Lakota, I respect all the religions as they are because they are belief systems. But I too have, not a religion, but I have a spirituality, a spiritual belief. I believe all the things that I've shared with you. And that's my Ochungo, that's my road. I just recently talked to some people. There was a group of Southern Baptists come to Pine Ridge to see how poor we are, what poverty we have. And so I said, okay, what do you want me to talk about? He said, we want to hear about your spiritual beliefs. Okay. So I started talking. And I talked a little bit about what I'm sharing here, but not all of this part that I'm sharing. And they looked at me, and the pastor, he got shaky, and his voice got shaky. And he said, well, do you believe in Jesus Christ? So I said, yes. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that He is the Son of God. I believe that He's a sacred being that was sent to the people, a certain group of people over there. And He came, and He did these things to set at least the way of conduct straight. I believe in you. And I will pray when they pray. go through the ceremonies that they have. I'm also, let me ask you a question. Do you believe in the white buffalo cat woman? He said, who? How little that they know, but how right they are, was my thought. And I said, I believe in the white buffalo cat woman because the white buffalo cat woman was a sacred being that was sent by Joshua, father, grandfather, to teach us, give us a chanupa, not a pipe. Out of respect, I say chanupa. If you don't know what I mean, then that's not my issue. I also believe that the sacred being that came through a sacred being, the ultimate sacred being, brought us 7 sacred rites. And I also believe that those sacred values, that we are all related. The rest of the values, ultimately the wisdom, worksape, ability to think, prophesy of what the future is going to be. You only get that by living a lifelong experience. You always heard, maybe in some way, your eyes are right now very close to your nose. Someday they will move out and you can see the whole perspective of living a long time. Worksape is not a doctorate degree. It's not a bachelor's degree. It could be a lesson because as Lakota, our first is the lesson, like I had to taste that liver. It tastes good. And then you go to understanding. We all go through that. You can remember if you were raised in that. As a female would say, don't ever do that again. But they were given the guidance. If we didn't learn a lesson, we'll do it all over again. Finally, we understood it. The next level is to interpret. So we are not balanced if you don't have the ability to interpret both English and Lakota, so you can tell the differences. You need to bring yourself up to be able to interpret. Because when you interpret, you can be able to, perhaps, not all of us will get worksape. And even if we did, we wouldn't admit it because we can see the future of what's going to happen. Worksape. And in the English way, we teach it to say that the level of that achievement is an honor as a doctorate degree. I have an honorary doctorate. The only one that calls me by that is my daughter. You know how she says that? Papa Doc. I can call you Papa Doc now. The gentleman that, I know we're taking a little bit more time, but I want to give honor and respect to the other member of the Council of Lakota Wisdom Keepers. So I'm going to conclude my thoughts with you. And I'm going to call on Gerald Onefeather. Gerald was the youngest chairman of the Glawasi tribe. At the age 32, he graduated, and he graduated from the University of South Dakota. If you guys know a guy by the name of Tom Brokaw, he announced the news, was well known. That was his roommate. And Tom Brokaw in honor of Gerald donated an endowment to Oglala Lakota College, which still stands. Just about, I guess, a month ago or two, Gerald was recognized by the University of Colorado, also with an honorary doctorate. And the interesting thing about that is when I was given an honorary doctorate, it was in the University of, from Ohio. I had to speak to a group of about, I don't know, 4,000 people, somewhere there. And the only Lakota that was in there was me. I was the only one. And yet I talked to Lakota, and I explained it to them. It's kind of a scary experience. And I'm sure Gerald had to go through that. He can share some thoughts with you. So we're going to take the mic back to you, Gerald, and you can speak from your heart and what you have to say.
Esto na hiukan na ukila ito. Dahil ekstreta sa manita ilikato na mo. Ekstreta sa eksa kabila na Lakota na 7 campfires na let's start now to act on kada niyo ha isip sa so. Ako na niyo ang pagawag na ito. As Christianity when you not about Israel. I'm not caught down on Christian example. Like church has happened to all. The company and this values you have that. For example, what about simply start knowledge of what just be or so young. At the home and the truth of it, and I'm done hey, you and kilo. Ni ate otra, la hani soda plano, o es la han soda soda polo. Yo creo que values que sabe está duro, que sabe muchos tipos de algo que es devil's power. It comes out of devil's power. The non-values que or after headshot, or after order. Kopaya kemanse ke the first order of business is to prayer, the value of prayer. And this is the start knowledge. And the second is we taught our have a big mind. So that anything that goes into your mind is big enough to absorb it. Now, my Italian is Kobata chose on it. Every politician talked about the youth. And Kobata chose on it, yeah. And it's something that older people expect, the kids, train them. I joined the Oglala tribe as a vice president and secretary. You remember we fought in 1963, we fought state jurisdiction, law and order. And I was hired to run law and order, to run the referendum vote. So I've done that. We won the election. And the last thing, the last value that we have is called law, natural law. Everything falls under natural law. The conflicts that we have belong to the natural law. And it's solvable, it can be solved, because the natural law persists. There's lately Pine Ridge, who had a referendum vote on liquor. In 1970, we had liquor on assumed chairmanship. we had liquor ongoing. So the old people said, stop it, you know? So I just didn't know how to stop it. There's something that's going. So I got confront God. I prayed. And he showed me a vision that all the people were running below me. I was standing on top of the hill at Badlands. And all the people, and there's a big embankment at the end of it, where they're running. And they were going in there. And pretty soon, a horseback rider, all he had is a lance in his hand and his G-string. And he came in, the people are running, and he turned half of them around, sent them back. So half the people were turned around. And the voice told me, he said, well, let's check it out the Lord, that's all he's going to save. The rest of them are genocide. They chose genocide because they died early. They said what the disease they're going to have is going to kill them. And they're going to have an early death. But this exchange house said that it's being turned. They said they got to live a long time. Because, well, contact guy is going to take care of them. So that was the first experience I had. And I talked to the council of my vision. And here we have 18 councilmen. And 9 decided to vote against it, against liquor. So we had a 9 and 9 tie vote. So I cast a deciding vote as a chairman. And that's how we stopped liquor. There's been County 2 is just before the council meeting. We went out and packed my pipe and we went out and prayed. The whatever decision is made, it's, to stop it. So I decided to go up on the hill and pray. And on the way back down, I kicked a bottle. So I picked it up and put it back to the car. And then looked in the light, you turn on the light and looked at it, and the seal was not broken, but the bottle was empty. So right away I knew what was going to happen. And that's how it happened. So that was my experience in dealing with liquor. It's this whole question of genocide. Well, I appreciate you guys coming because there's a lot of information that needs to get out to the public. And you need to learn. You need to do them. Not only learn them, but to do them. Because these are the sacred sites. Star knowledge. That's Devil's Tower. And we've got the Honey Guys. Honey Peak. That's where they call the thunders back home. They call the thunders so they can bring rain. And on column 2, though, is sea water. But that has been done for I don't know how many years. And then there's Bermude, and there's Prescott. Prescott is the most important part of the forest site, because that's the beginning of each year, the new year. You look at our situation, and the calendar is January, starting, but ours is in March. So you look at the solstice, and you do it the solstice, so the stars are, I mean, people will listen to your prayers when you do it on solstice, because it opens up the universe so that, you know, prayers can be heard. And that's why Black Hills is important. On Mount Rushmore, there's a face on the south end, looking at the four faces. You look over there and you can see it. It's called the Wolfstead Diamond, and he's there to watch the Black Hills. So he's there since the carving of the Black Rushmore happened, and that's why it's sacred, because it's there. And there's lots of things like that that are, you know, are ongoing, but very few people honor it or do it. But you have to go up there to do it, participate, and do it. And I'd like to urge you guys to, any of you here, to go to the Black Hills, to the sites on the solstice, and you'll have a different feeling. Gonna be different when you do. And that's that one day, that's all you know, required, it's just one day. And that's during solstice of the month. So I just want to tell you that because we're talking about wisdom, and star knowledge is the basis of a lot of information that we take it for granted. Well, I took a
Thank you, Gerald. We're going to take a short break for lunch. And when we come back, we're going to have Marcel give a presentation. But we're honored with a very special man in Lakota country that just showed up. His name is Jesse Takenline. And he's a member of the Standing Rock, currently Tribal Council. And Jesse, I'd like to have you say a few words, and then we'll break when you finish. The mic is there, Gerald has the mic. Oh.
Chamberlain, who had unite op, Skavitash, almost be Utanaja, unite Puha. You can't move up the head and cut. The Uraga, and she thought the Hank and how would that get, and then got the say, once they gave war, and then she took me. The wood shake the auto again. Dark auto, she said, and the last one, being a little whoopie, I keep them below, and hook up from Kisha, to Gashi to Lala Kisha camp. Lala camp, okay, the doctor, they had a fully relaxed and such as that, what she's doing below. Such an honor to be asked to speak, and I'll be real brief. Yesterday I was at a meeting of the South Dakota Indian Education Association for the advisory committee. That they have a conference, and as I was listening to the wonderful words this morning. I want to acknowledge all of the elders here that are honored to speak at the same time as you. The elderly lady, my mother's still alive at home on Sandra, sound just like my mother talking. It's really refreshing to hear her words, the way she spoke and the advice she gave. But what I wanted to share briefly is that we talk about the need for our children to become educated. And it's not the education that is being pushed by our non-Indian friends and allies, or maybe they're not friends and allies. But they want to make sure that they don't fail in what they're doing by putting out what they have to put out through the BIE or the state. And I call it child abuse right now. Because you look at the number of children who aren't able to think and be and do like the Washichu. Yeah, they always quote Kentucky Utake. Sitting Bull, they say, Sitting Bull said to pick up the good and leave the bad alone. Which he said, now I heard something last week, really, that Washichu, we took a profound statement when we talked about he said, Sitting Bull said to pick up the good and leave the bad alone. He didn't say to be like them. What you're talking about is what our children are prophesied as needing, wanting, important to know, to live as Lakota, beginning with our language. So these are the things that, probably hung in the history books. They say, good Indian, bad Indian. Always pushing things like this. I get our non-Indian friends, and today sometimes it's Lakota in those offices, they get upset with me because they always say, well, how come you just can't try to do what we're putting out there? I said, because it's failing. I don't want to be a part of that failure. We want to see partnerships with you, the state, with you, the federal government, for you to recognize us as partners. We're not going to beg you, we're not going to force you, but it doesn't happen because it's prophesied. To at least listen and accept something that's tribally driven. That's driven, that comes from our Kyoshbai, that comes from our reservation, that comes from our people. We were just as smart as you, if not smarter. We have relatives who can say their name and put all the letters behind their name. We know what the solutions are. And what you're talking about this morning is exactly what I'm trying to get them to understand. That this is what our children need. There's no dumb Lakota child. There's no dumb ever Lakota child. It's just that they don't want to be Washitu. And I know if they want to, they can be successful in that. But they're looking for what you all talked about this morning. And how to put that into a learning system is a task now. I turn around and I visit with my relatives on other governments within South Dakota, our tribal government. How can we do this now? In closing, I got the Secretary of Education for South Dakota to make some commitments to us. And I'm going to see if she can follow up on those. Bring something, she said, and we'll sit down. I said, I'm not going to have our relatives spend time and money just for you as one person to say no. That's really disrespectful when you do things like that. She's done some things like that in the past. That's you really disrespect our tribal governments when you're given that authority to say no or yes. So, but I want you to know that. Likewise, I said, what we're looking for, we have the solutions. What we're looking for is to be partners. children to grow. And so we have a lot of children who are dropping out, a lot of children who are suffering. And we don't have to see that. So it's our duty to change what you're doing to them. I said, in my view, when they drop out of child abuse, because you don't give them a chance. So Abby Daki will not be at Kohan Washitu, Ofta Unitu, Chasna Ata, Wolf to Koisha Kosa, Uzul Moblaki, Chasna Kelly Chasna Lakota, Wolf to Kehena Otokiska, Washitu, Ofta Wablaki. Tanashi Wagrusha Seta, Blank, Honey, Akela, Kihoni, okay. Tokisko, we have to be watching now, that you're doing a ball. You're doing a ball, little ball. So, okay, I want to website, the one off you, do it, or stuff. Closing that, I try to do my best. Again, really humble to be here. My late father always said that, be ready to help the people the best way you can. Okay, when I meet with our non-Indian friends, with education, with ICWA, I think of those, what you said this morning, we heard at home, in my church, by my grandma on my mom's side, my great-grandfather who never spoke English, all these things, they hang on to, they tell us. So this is the spirit of that, and I do my best to take to these meetings with our non-Indian friends. And Paula, we're going to keep praying, and we're going to see these things change. But really appreciate you, what you're doing. All of you are looking in the room here. I'm going to share this at home. I got a chance to be a part of a meeting where there's wonderful elders, a lot of wisdom. And I got a chance to be in a room with 3 former tribal presidents of Lakota History Conference, Kashi, Harold, now the cat, that's the fellow Mr. One Feather, now two Wilbur, there's 3 of them. And I got a chance to work with Wilbur and Harold. Today I'm really humbled to say that I got a chance to be tribal chair and president at home 20 years ago. And I wondered why I stopped and I know why now. Very heard a lot of good stuff. We talked to my fellow, thank you.
Okay.